Welkom by Agri Monitor en hier gesels ons landbou. In hierdie week se program, ons gaan aan met ons praatjies van verlede week en die week voor dit. Ons begin met professor Helmke van Bach. Hy is 'n professor van landbou en ekonomie by die Universiteit van Namibië. Ons gaan aan met die derde gedeelte van sy toespraak wat hy gelewer het by die Lewende Hawe Produsente Organisasie se jaarlikse kongres vroeër hierdie jaar. En hy praat oor die beeswaardeketting in Namibië en hy gee 'n oorsig van die beeswaardekettinge in Namibië en die industrie. Kom ons luister na hom. Dan gaan ons voort met gedeelte 5 van Duncan Stevenson, 'n baie belangrike praatjie vir my. Hy praat oor biosekuriteit op varkplase. Luister na die riglyne wat hy gee in die raad en die advies in sy praatjie, want jy kan dit dalk net ook gebruik op jou beesplaas en jou skaapplaas en jou bokplaas om help seker te maak dat Namibië nie onder siektes soos back and claw seer val nie. En dan vir die laaste ene gaan ons aan met die finale gedeelte, die 5de gedeelte van Dr. Emmanuel Ikufe. Hy het gepraat by die Agri Outlook konferensie ook vroeër vanjaar wat deur die Namibië Landbouunie en die vier landbouunies in die land aangebied is. Hy praat oor back and claw seer in Namibië en hoe dit bestuur moet word en wat ons kan doen om die siekte te beheer hierso in die land. Geniet hierdie week se program en ek hoop julle vind dit waardevol.
Excellence. What does it mean? Is it a sign of reliability, a mark of outstanding quality? Is it a measure of your hard-earned success? Is it a feeling, the knowing that you've earned your achievements and that you've paid your dues? Is excellence something that can ever really be achieved? It almost seems like you can never attain true excellence, but that's exactly why we work towards it. Because excellence isn't something that can be given to you. It's something that must be earned, day by day, month by month, year by year. Excellence is a lifelong pursuit. Every milestone we reach is an opportunity for expansion, improvement, and innovation, a challenge for us to become better than we could have ever dreamed of. Our goal isn't to compete against others, but to consistently better ourselves, to impact entire economic sectors and global supply chains, and provide you with new avenues through which you can thrive. It's about building a level of success that is shared by all. At Agra, excellence is our obsession, an obsession to outwork and outperform not our competitors, but ourselves. This obsession with excellence exists in everything we do, from engaging with our clients to providing value and building relationships. It's how we aim to build a nation's dreams, not only for tomorrow, but for years to come. We see every adversity as an opportunity for growth. Adapting to change is the only way to reach our true potential. We'll never give up. If there's no way, we'll make one, just as we have so many times before. Agra is agriculture, so average will never satisfy us. We will always aim to exceed the expectations of our clients, our shareholders, and our people every step of the way. As Namibian agriculture continues to evolve, Agra remains the household name for products, services, and advice. As with high performance and high achievement, excellence is something you have to become through passion, commitment, and consistency. It's never easy, but who said it should be? Perseverance brought us here, and our strive for excellence will take us into the future.
So, met al die inligting in ag genome, het ons nou die markte nuut gedefinieer van daai vorige studie, en wat ons daar sien is dat na Noorwe word hierdie stukke uitgevoer, flankstate, eierip, culotte, ramptail, striploin ensovoorts, en ons stuur 24% na Noorwe. Noorwe is 'n hoër prys as Europa. Na Europa stuur ons net trimmings 75-25, 9,8%. Die mid-end cuts, hierdie voorrib, ramphart, silverside, wat 13,43% is, los ons waar? in Namibië. Want Namibië betaal hoë pryse vir goeie kats. Gaan bietjie na die retailmarkte toe, gaan bietjie na die klein plekke toe en koop vir jou 'n stuk goeie vleis. Julle betaal geld. En wat is die koste? Daar is baie min vervoerkoste, daar is baie min middelmanne. Daar is 'n geleentheid vir daai snitte. En dit is een van die groot verskille, dit was in die vorige studie nie die geval nie. Daai stukke is ook Europa toe. Oeps. Hierdie stukke is ook Europa toe. Dan die low-end cuts na RSA 26,53. Nou 26,53% is betekenisvol hoër as wat ons uitvoer na Suid-Afrika toe. Ek gaan gou terug. Kyk bietjie hierdie swart gedeeltes wat Suid-Afrika toe gestuur word. Dit is nie 24% van daai hele ding nie. Dis baie minder. Ons het in die verlede het ons al hoe minder uitgevoer na Suid-Afrika. Kyk hier so 2019 hoeveel ons uitgevoer het Suid-Afrika toe en dit het betekenisvol verminder. Die persentasie van hierdie tot die totale het verminder. Dan bene en vet 25,69 hou ons in Namibië en al die afval ook 'n verandering. In Suid-Afrika kry ons 'n betekenisvol hoër prys as wat ons dit plaaslik gebruik. Dit is ook 'n verskil van wat destyds die geval was. Met hierdie inligting gaan ons na die opsomming toe. Dit is nou soortgelyk soos Romee vir ons gewys het, daai grafiek, waar ons nou die verskillende snitte het. So hier het ons die snitte, high-end cuts, mid-end trimmings, low-end bones en afval. Die bestemming na waar ons dit stuur, wat die kilogramme is, hoeveel kilogramme is dit, as ons gebruik maak van 'n 220 kg karkas. Nou, 'n 220 kg karkas is 'n ligter dier. Ons begin altyd van wat die verbruiker wil hê, van die kleinhandelsprys, en ons beweeg terug, en dit wat oorbly is dit wat die produsent kan vat. Ons hou nie daarvan, maar dit is, maar aan die beginsel is dit so. So die high-end cuts gemiddeld, dis nou daai verskillende snitte wat daar is in Namibiese dollar $348 werd. Terwyl die bene en vet is 35,54 werd. En dit is nou die pryse wat gebaseer is op daai bloktoets, waar ons die individuele pryse het, hoe dit dan verander het. Dan trek ons van hierdie goed, trek ons die retail koste en die margin af. Dit is nou die koste wat Noorwe nou het om daai produkte op hulle rakke te hê. Hulle winste, hulle verdeling, hulle verpakking, al daai goed, van daai prys is hulle koste en hulle winste. Dan die distribusie tussen groothandel en kleinhandel is hierdie koste. Dan trek ons die vervoerkoste af na Bergen of Rotterdam, dit is nou die havens, en dan trek ons daarvan af die kostes wat ons abattoirs daai produkte verkoop per kilogram, en dan is dit die prys hierso die kilogramme wat ons het. Dit is nie die produsenteprys nie, dit is vir daai snitte. So dit is die waardeketting. So die waardeketting begin met hierdie plus daai, plus hierdie, kry ons die bedrag. En so kan ons dit vir elke aspek uitwerk. Dit is die waardeketting vir die 220 kilogram. Nou wat is die gewegte gemiddeld oor al hierdie kilogramme? Nou al hierdie kilogramme maak saam die 220 kilogram, en die abattoir, die plaaslike abattoir in Namibië verkoop dus die bees, daai tipe karkas gemiddeld vir 105,72. Wat kry ons uit as produsent? 60, 70, 80, 90, hoeveel? Tussen 60 en 70, né? Is dit regverdig? Wil ons meer kry? Natuurlik wil ons meer kry. Maar dit wys vir ons wat hier aan die gang is. So, dit is wat die abattoir voorverkoop. Nou daarvan moet jy aftrek die operasionele koste van die abattoir, die admin-koste van die abattoir en die finansieringskoste van die abattoir. En ons weet dat abattoirs in Namibië is verskillend. Sommiges maak geld, sommiges maak nie geld nie. Die afvalwaarde is hierdie bedrag. Daar is ook 'n koste om dit te bemaak word op die kleinhandelsvlak. En dan sien ons dat aan die einde van die dag ons 220 kg bees is op die totale rakke amper R40.000 werd en hy word verkoop vir R24.000. Dit vergelyk soortgelyk met die studie wat 2020 gedoen is. 2020 het ons op 'n 230 kg studie gewerk, 'n kilogram karkas gewerk. Wat is die gemiddelde karkas wat ons in Namibië slag? Is dit 220 kg? Ja, daar is 'n paar van hulle. Roelie, wat is die afgelope 4 jaar? Oor die 250. En as ons die kilogram, as ons die diere aftrek wat onder 180 was, dan beweeg daai gemiddeld op na 267 kg. So eintlik produseer ons al groterige karkasse. En daar was jare in die afgelope 4 jaar wat nie so goed was nie.
One day, one will get to the type of piggery that you want, but we can still put a lot of these things in place. So we spoke about purchase of pigs when they come in, what we do to quarantine them. The other point is feed and water. Our food sources are very, very, very important because they also carry disease. Think about maize that's stored in a poor conditions where there are rats, the same rats that you want to keep out the farm, or perhaps there where the maize is kept, and transferring the same disease. How long can foot and mouth disease stay alive outside of an animal? Any idea? If there's a bit of manure or there's something in the feed sources, quite easily for months. Quite easily for months. Okay? If it is a virus, is outside of the body of the animal, how long will it survive? If there's a bit of manure in between the maize or the virus is outside the animal, how long will it stay alive? Some viruses can stay for months outside of the body alive. So that means you can infect your animals with things like manure or compost or other feed sources that are contaminated with a virus. Okay. So feed sources, we want to buy as far as possible where from a respected feed source. We want to make sure that it is where we're keeping our feed is clean, clear of any other animals entering in there, and especially rats and pest control.
I just want to emphasize that our feeds are we are ISO 22000 accredited. So all the companies in the world, we are the only company producing it, but that means we have to have food baths, we have to disinfect all the people coming in, you have to have rat traps. It's a big process, and we have in order as we're speaking. So that has to happen once a year.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Because without that, your feed supplier could be also your disease supplier. That's how it is. But you see how important it is for them to take care and to ensure that it's clean of all that. Yes.
What can a pig producer do?
Yes.
To stimulate the pigs for them to keep the
the pregnancy.
Yeah, let's immunity.
Okay.
But you product what you can with the food for you to mix with the feed or put in the water. It's just to boost the.
So if you're buying feed from a feed supplier, then it's all the vitamins, minerals, everything is in there. It's a balanced supply, and that will be enough to supply all of it. There are products that you can throw in water as additional supplements. That's available, and we can maybe through the chairman give you some of those that are available here. Yeah.
I realized at my chickens that when the chickens' immunity is down, they get easily sick.
Absolutely, because the food that they're getting in, they're using to fight disease. They're not using it to grow, and that's why we want to suppress the disease all the time. But the food that they are eating must be used for growth, not for suppressing disease. Yeah. So we can supply you with the names of some of those things.
I think that good farmers.
Yes.
Where he's got a mud pond.
Yes.
And these pigs are, and his explanation was they are building immunity. That is their natural habitat, to be in this muddy.
Yes.
And keeps
Yes.
them cool, and it is building their immunity. Now, compared to the system that Duncan is explaining, this is an extremely clean environment.
Correct.
What is the difference then?
Good.
Is it better this way or is it better this way?
All right. So I always say, what are we trying to produce? We're trying to produce meat. Hey. If you go the system that he showed you, he will also produce meat. He's going to produce a lot less. They're going to grow a lot slower. The reason why we farrow in farrowing crates is so that they don't destroy the piglets in open areas like that. They're going to fight the sun, they're going to fight disease, and they're going to burn energy fighting disease and not growing. So one will survive like that, but you're never going to become a farmer that is going to contribute to producing enough pigs. Pigs want clean, healthy, access to water, good environment, and they do their best. Everything we take away, if we take the roof away, they grow slower. If we take the concrete floor away, they grow slower. Why? Because more disease, sun, they're using the energy to fight off all those things, to cope with all those things. Yeah. Exactly. Shows you why, because what they're eating, they're using to keep warm. When they're fighting disease, they use the food to fight the disease, not to grow.
They don't come and eat when it's so cold.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So I always say it's like the bank card we had here, that system you explained. You can give your bank card to everybody. Somewhere along the line, somebody's going to get it right and you're going to fail. That system will work until a point, and there'll be disease, and suddenly you can't control the disease. Yeah. All right. Disposal of carcasses. What do we do if a pig dies inside the piggery?
I don't burn it out.
Bury and then
Bury, burn, correct. So where do we bury it? If our piggery is here, as far away from the piggery, a nice far distance. We want to bury it where there's no water source, far away from the bore or the well or whatever we're using to get the water. We want to make sure that it's covered deep enough so that no animals have got access to it. Cats, dogs.
Kills all the viruses.
Really? I tell you what, you try it, you tell us next year. If you're still here, then they will know it's okay. Okay. So what's the biggest problem that we have with disposing of carcasses? Is dog, cat goes to a dead carcass lying there, and they go back into the piggery, and whatever that pig died of, you just bring that disease back into those pigs. All right. So we want to make sure it's totally covered, buried, no access to wild animals, no access to that. Right. Burning it is also another option. Incinerating it and burning it, also a way of totally destroying a virus. Okay.
So the amount of compensation, which is also a very big question, according to the Act, it's standing there. The amount of compensation payable to this owner whose products, animals or whatever is destroyed will be a fair market value of the animals or such products at the time of destruction. So If the animals are destroyed today, the compensation will be the market value at this time. If it is next year, it will be at that time. We have other policies that I think MET that say if a cow is destroyed by wild animals, it's so much. I think 8,000. We don't have that fixed amount, as it will be the market value of that animal at that time. I think it's a fair thing to do. Okay, however, there is also ineligibility to compensation, and it's also coming from the Act. I'm just citing what the Act says. If the products, your animals, your commodities are destroyed as a consequence of contravening the Act, there will be no compensation, meaning that if you have illegally imported cattle, products, a container of beef, illegally imported from South Africa or from anywhere else, imported a big flask of semen, they will be destroyed without compensation. And actually, we will also be charged because you are risking a multi-billion-dollar industry. Not just your destruction, they will also be charged. What we are doing at the borders, destroying 1 kilogram and not charge people, that is, maybe they didn't know, and it's just, you know, they used to do that, and maybe the awareness has not reached them yet. But if this is done deliberately, you will be charged, and the things will be destroyed without compensation. If you've imported animals from anywhere, and these animals, when they got here, they were already infected from where they are coming from, you won't be compensated, but they have to be destroyed to stop the spread of the disease. If the animals are going, or the products are going to DRC or Angola or Zambia or Botswana, transiting through Namibia, it can be animals or any other product. And it was found that these are coming from an infected establishment or country, and they have to be, we can't allow them to keep going because then they are contaminating our country. We'll destroy them without compensating the owner. Okay? Compensation payable to the owner does not cover the production cost. Production or a loss of production as a consequence of loss, meaning that if your dairy, all your dairy animals are destroyed, and then you are told to restock after 3 months, then you say, no, I make so much per month, I'm supposed to be also given that. No, that doesn't cover that. It will only cover for that animal. So that's what the Act says. So compensation is there. Let us not be scared to report, because if we don't report with this disease, we cannot hide it. Those that are jeopardizing the status, let us report them. Let us report this disease as early as possible, so that, you know, if the destruction is done, we will still be compensated. But if not, we are not going to do compensation if the whole country is affected, and we are all going to lose very big. No one will buy your milk. No one will buy your meat. You will be selling it locally, and I think the price won't be so good. Now, there was also a question, how is the readiness of the country if the disease comes here? And I think I have 2 more slides and we are done. What is the readiness of the country if the disease comes here? DVS came up with a strategy. We have costed that strategy, and it's actually pending approval from, we have to send it to cabinet. The strategy has short-term, medium-term, and long-term measures that needs to be, or activities that need to be implemented. Some of the activities are actually already ongoing, like surveillance that is being carried out in the south, the veterinary officials there. We are already doing surveillance along the borders. We are taking blood samples. We are doing a clinical inspection. We are training our officials here and there so that they can recognize the disease. It's an ongoing thing, but it will keep on ongoing, and that's why we still need more money for it. Okay, farmers awareness, we've done it, and we are not going to stop doing it. Not every farmer was covered. We have covered a few. The offices in those regions will continue conducting farmers and awareness, and then that's why we still need money for that.
En daar het julle dit vir hierdie week se program baie tegniese inligting daarso van professor Helmko van Bach van die Universiteit van Namibië, maar nog steeds waardevolle inligting as 'n mens kyk na die finansies en die goederes. Dan ook Duncan Stevenson wat gepraat het oor die biosekuriteit op varkplase. Hy is die varkkundige uit Suid-Afrika wat gepraat het tydens die Pig Producers Dag van die Namibië Landbou Unie. En dan laastens het ons ook gekyk en ons sluit af met sy praatjie van Dr. Emmanuel Ikufe wat gepraat het oor back and close hier in Namibië. Baie dankie.